We're counting down the 20 weirdest facts about the Rain Man's 1949 Buick Roadmaster, a car that's far more than just a cinematic backdrop. From months-long nationwide searches and mechanical headaches to hidden meanings behind its powder blue paint, every entry pulls back the curtain on what really went into transforming this post-war classic into a Hollywood legend. Expect surprising production challenges, symbolic design choices, and secrets that even car enthusiasts miss. So, what strange hurdles did filmmakers face before a single frame was shot? Let's start with number 20. Finding two matching 1949 Buick Roadmaster convertibles wasn't as simple as calling up a prop house. Production scouts spent months combing the country, chasing down leads and negotiating with collectors. Only about 8,000 Roadmaster convertibles rolled off the line that year, and by the late 1980s, most survivors had been restored in custom colors or heavily modified. The filmmakers needed both cars not just to look identical, but to match in the exact shade of powder blue, an even taller order, since that color was rarely preserved. The search for these twin Buicks set the stage for every challenge that followed. Two nearly identical 1949 Buick Roadmasters handled every mile and every close-up in Rain Man, but each had a distinct job. The so-called hero car stayed pristine for the camera, reserved for beauty shots and tight interior scenes where every detail mattered. Meanwhile, the driving car was built to take a beating. Its rear suspension was reinforced to carry the weight of camera gear and the crew, especially during trunk-mounted filming across long stretches of highway. Mechanics prepared it for thousands of miles, knowing the original parts would never survive the relentless demands of a cross-country shoot without serious upgrades. Powder blue wasn't just a random paint choice for the Rain Man Buick. Production designers pored over color charts and period photos, finally settling on this specific shade to evoke the optimism and tradition of post-war America. Powder blue, popular in late 1940s car ads, conjured images of family outings and a sense of calm stability, the world Charlie Babbitt's father clung to. On screen, that soft blue stood in sharp contrast to the slick, modern silver of Charlie's Mercedes. The Roadmaster's color became a quiet visual cue, setting up a clash of eras and values every time the two cars shared a frame. In Rain Man, even the paint had a story to tell. Under the hood of the 1949 Roadmaster sat Buick's legendary Fireball Straight 8, a 320 cubic inch engine pushing out about 150 horsepower, impressive muscle for its time. But that much vintage power came with a price. On set, the production team faced daily mechanical rituals just to keep the car running. Mechanics stood by with toolkits, ready to tweak carburetors, check fluids, and tighten bolts after every long day of shooting. The Straight 8 could handle the open road, but it needed constant attention. Multiple tune-ups and quick fixes were routine as the Buick racked up thousands of miles across state lines. This was no museum piece. It was a living, breathing machine that demanded respect. The Roadmaster's Dynaflow transmission brought its own set of quirks to the set. Unlike most automatics, the Dynaflow didn't have distinct gear changes, just a smooth, continuous surge from a standstill, thanks to its two-speed design. But that seamless feel came at a cost. Acceleration was slow, and there was no option to downshift for quick bursts. Directors and camera crews had to time every driving shot around these mechanical realities. Scenes that called for a fast getaway or sudden lane change had to be carefully choreographed since the Buick simply couldn't deliver snap acceleration. Every mile on film was dictated by the car's original engineering, not Hollywood's demands. Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman didn't just pose behind the wheel, they actually drove the Roadmaster themselves for much of the film. Hoffman, in particular, pushed for real driving instead of rear projection, believing the authenticity would shape Raymond's reactions in every close-up. This decision meant the production had to negotiate new insurance policies and tighten safety protocols, since the actors were piloting a 40-year-old convertible on public highways. Routes were carefully scouted to minimize risk, and the crew rehearsed every move. The result, every twitch, every glance, every moment in the car came from genuine experience, not a studio illusion. Raymond's refusal to drive over 45 miles per hour wasn't just a running joke. It sent the production team on a wild search for rural highways and back roads where crawling along at that speed wouldn't create chaos. Every stretch had to be mapped in advance, with location permits and traffic coordination handled down to the last detail. Sometimes, police escorts were needed just to keep impatient drivers from blowing past the camera rigs. The slow pace didn't just test the crew's patience, it stretched every shoot, turning what should have been quick scenes into all-day marathons, all for the sake of Raymond's character and that stubborn speedometer needle. Inside. The Rain Man Buick, the original bench seat, did more than preserve period accuracy. It shaped the entire emotional journey. Director Barry Levinson kept the classic bench precisely because it forced Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman to share every inch, shoulder to shoulder, for hours of dialogue. There was no modern center console to create distance, no way to retreat when tension rose between the brothers. The camera crew took full advantage, using tight framing and close-ups that made the physical closeness impossible to ignore. Levinson later explained that this enforced proximity wasn't accidental. It was the engine behind the brothers' gradual connection, turning the Buick's interior into a crucible for their relationship. Rain on the call sheet meant everything ground to a halt. Raymond's refusal to ride in the Buick during bad weather wasn't just a character quirk. It created real headaches for the crew. The convertible's exposed interior and the need to keep Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman side by side left no room for workarounds. When storms hit, the entire production idled, losing precious hours and racking up costs. Alternate sets couldn't capture the same intimacy, so every rain day meant rescheduling, extra expenses, and a scramble to keep the film on track. Even a passing shower could shut down the shoot. The position of the Roadmaster's convertible top wasn't just a matter of comfort or weather, it became a silent cue to Raymond's state of mind. When the top was down, Raymond was at ease. His anxiety dialed back as the open air rolled by. But whenever the roof snapped shut, it signaled a spike in his discomfort, a need to retreat from the world. The production tracked every scene's top position with painstaking care, using storyboards and continuity notes to match Raymond's mood. This choreography turned the roof into an emotional barometer, inviting viewers to read Raymond's comfort level without a word being spoken. Every inch of the Rain Man Roadmaster's interior had to look and feel like 1949. The production team kept the original cloth upholstery, which meant daily cleaning to erase the dust, sweat, and crumbs left behind by long hours of filming. Bakelite knobs on the dash, already brittle from decades of sun, cracked or chipped with the slightest pressure, so the prop department sourced new old stock replacements and swapped them in between takes. Even the manual AM radio wasn't just for show. It had to work, giving the actors something real to fiddle with during dialogue-heavy scenes. Every detail, from period-correct window cranks to the faintly musty smell of the seat cushions, was preserved or restored. This level of care wasn't just about looking authentic. It gave the actors and the camera a tactile sense of the past, grounding every close-up in the reality of a well-worn, living artifact. The definitely scene wasn't shot on a fake set or with a studio replica. For those tense, close-quarters conversations, the crew used the actual hero Buick. Doors removed to squeeze in oversized cameras, lighting bounced through the windshield to mimic sunlight, and every inch of the cramped interior packed with rigging and gear. There was no room for comfort or shortcuts. The actors performed surrounded by real dashboard knobs and worn seat fabric, not green screens or mock-ups. This commitment to authenticity meant every fidget, every sideways glance, and every repetition of Raymond's lines happened in the same tight space the characters inhabited. The result? Those iconic moments feel as claustrophobic and genuine as the journey itself, with the Roadmaster's cabin acting as a silent third character in every frame. The 1949 Buick Roadmaster isn't just a background prop in Rain Man, it's almost always there, quietly holding the story together. By the end of the film, the Roadmaster has appeared in nearly 70% of all scenes, a presence that rivals the main cast. It's the one constant from the Kmart underwear run, where Raymond's routines collide with Charlie's impatience, to the diner toothpick scene, where Raymond's mind stuns everyone at the table. The car isn't just a ride from one plot point to another, it's the glue that links these iconic moments, giving the film a visual and emotional through line. Every time the Buick rolls into frame, it signals another step in the brothers' journey, sometimes awkward, sometimes funny, always essential. With so much screen time, the Roadmaster becomes less a vehicle and more a silent character, shaping the rhythm and feel of the entire movie. Charlie Babbit doesn't understand his brother's attachment to the old Buick until the truth comes out. This was the car their father used to drive Raymond in as a child. For Raymond, the Roadmaster isn't just transportation, it's a safe space, the only place outside the institution that feels familiar. Every detail, from the worn bench seat to the hum of the straight-8 engine, connects him to memories of comfort and routine. That's why Raymond can handle hours in the Buick but panics at the thought of Charlie's Mercedes or an airplane. The Roadmaster carries echoes of quiet drives with their father, turning each mile into a return to something steady and known. For Charlie, this revelation lands like a punch. The car he saw as a burden is, for Raymond, the last real link to family, a piece of his past that nothing else can replace. After the cameras stopped rolling, one of the Rain Man Buicks wasn't tucked away in a studio garage. It hit the road again, this time as a Hollywood ambassador. MGM loaded the convertible onto transporters and sent it on a cross-country promotional tour, stopping at shopping malls and classic car shows in dozens of cities. Fans lined up for the chance to sit in the actual car from the movie, snapping photos behind the wheel and thumbing the same Bakelite knobs Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman had touched. The Roadmaster drew crowds everywhere it went, transforming from a film prop into a pop culture attraction. This hands-on campaign didn't just keep Rain Man in the headlines, it turned the Buick into a celebrity in its own right, fueling both box office buzz and collector curiosity that would only grow in the years ahead. When the Rain Man Roadmaster finished its run as a Hollywood attraction, it didn't fade quietly into private hands. In the 1990s, the car that had toured shopping malls and car shows across America landed on the auction block, drawing attention from both film buffs and classic car collectors. Bidding started strong, with the hammer finally falling at $65,000, a striking sum at the time for a post-war American convertible, even one with movie credentials. What set this sale apart wasn't just the price, but the thick stack of provenance that came with it. The bundle included MGM studio paperwork, transport logs, and stacks of photos from the promotional tour. Everything needed to prove this was the actual car fans had lined up to see. The documentation gave buyers confidence, driving up the value far beyond a typical Roadmaster. In a market where stories are as important as sheet metal, this sale offered the first hard evidence that the Rain Man Buick had become more than a prop. It was now a bona fide piece of pop culture history, with the paperwork to back it up. The fate of the second Rain Man Buick remains one of Hollywood's great automotive mysteries. After filming wrapped, studio records offer no clear trail, no bill of sale, no transfer paperwork, nothing to confirm where the backup Roadmaster ended up. Some insiders claim it was quietly sold to a private collector. while others whisper about a forgotten storage unit or even the possibility of the car being scrapped for parts. Over the years, car hunters and movie buffs have scoured DM5 records, chased down rumors at classic car shows, and compared restoration photos, hoping to match a VIN or spot a telltale sign of screen use. Yet, despite decades of searching, the car's true whereabouts have never been confirmed. With the value of authentic Rain Man Roadmasters soaring, even the faintest lead sparks a fresh round of speculation. For now, the missing Buick keeps its secrets, fueling debates and wishful detective work among collectors who dream of finding the ultimate lost movie car. After Rain Man swept the Oscars, the collector car market felt the impact almost overnight. Auction price guides from the early 1990s show a sharp rise in values for 1949 Buick Roadmaster convertibles, with some models doubling in price within just a few years. Before the film's release, a well-kept Roadmaster convertible might have sold for the price of a modest family sedan. By the mid-1990s, those same cars, especially convertibles, were commanding top dollar at classic car auctions, often outpacing other post-war Buicks by a wide margin. Collectors who once overlooked the bulky, slow Roadmaster suddenly saw it as a pop culture trophy, a piece of movie history with real investment potential. Auction listings began to reference Rain Man by name, and cars with even a hint of film connection drew extra attention. This measurable surge didn't just affect a handful of cars, it rippled out to the broader market, turning the once underappreciated 1949 Roadmaster into one of the most sought-after American convertibles of its era. Restoration shops across the country saw their waiting lists swell after Rain Man hit theaters. Collectors who had ignored dusty, forgotten 1949 Roadmaster convertibles suddenly couldn't move fast enough. Cars that had sat untouched in barns for decades were yanked out and rushed to body shops, all for one reason: everyone wanted that powder blue. Paint suppliers reported a surge in orders for the exact shade seen on screen, even though it was never a top seller back in 1949. Shop owners remember customers bringing in faded photos from the movie, insisting on matching the color down to the last hint of blue-gray. The backlog grew so intense that some restorers began specializing in Rain Man-style conversions, knowing the demand wasn't just for any Roadmaster, but for one that looked exactly like Charlie and Raymond's. By the mid-1990s, powder blue had become the most requested color for Roadmaster restorations, turning what was once a rare production choice into the new standard. The film didn't just boost values, it rewrote the car's visual identity in the eyes of a whole generation of fans. On the surface, the Roadmaster looks simple and slow, just like Raymond, but underneath, both hold a kind of value that only patience and understanding can reveal. What Charlie once dismissed as worthless becomes, mile by mile, the most priceless inheritance of all. From the months-long search for two matching powder blue 1949 Buick Roadmasters to the car's transformation into a cultural icon, this countdown has revealed just how much the Roadmaster shaped both Rain Man's story and its legacy. The most surprising facts, like Raymond's rain rule derailing production schedules and the bench seat forcing brotherly intimacy, show how every detail, from mechanical quirks to emotional symbolism, played a role on and off screen. Across all 20 entries, a common thread emerges. What looked simple on film was actually the result of rare finds, technical headaches, and creative intent. The car's real-life journey, from forgotten classic to auctioned memorabilia and collector obsession, mirrors Charlie's own discovery of value where he least expected it. In the end, the Roadmaster isn't just a prop. It's a rolling metaphor for patience, tradition, and unexpected worth. Within the world of movie cars, few vehicles have been so carefully chosen, so central to the story, or so transformed by their moment in the spotlight.